Welcome everyone into another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Tommy Brzee. As always, it is Wednesday, June 19th. First of all, I just want to apologize for being a little bit late here. Had some technical difficulties, couldn't get the title to update on YouTube, but we're up now and we're ready to roll. But we have a great show for you today. We're going to start talking about Les Miles. He just sued LSU over some vacated wins that he believes are keeping him out of the Hall of Fame in college football. So I want to break down my thoughts on that. Then we'll get into a very interesting study that came out about O-lineman workouts, particularly in the summer and the off-season workouts, and how they need just a little bit of tweaking throughout this next little bit. So we'll get into that and why I think it's a very good idea, frankly. Then we'll get into Nick Harbor. We talked about him probably about a month ago now, talking about his chances to go to the Olympic trials and possibly to the Olympics. Well, he's decided to not go to the trials and go back to Gamecock football. A huge win for South Carolina football for sure, but we'll get into that decision and why I think it's obviously huge for South Carolina, but maybe not the one that I would have made. Obviously, not a decision that I'm set to make by any means, but then we'll get to stock up, stock down. We did SEC yesterday. We're going to get into Big Ten today, so tons to break down there. Before we finish it out with some Wednesday what-ifs, and we have some really great ones out there, how teams adapt to having to use their second quarterback, who are the contenders in that still, if everyone has to use their second-string quarterback, I guess. But let's jump right in. Before we jump in, I do want to remind you all we get tons of questions and comments throughout the show, and the best way for you all to get your question on the screen, we can have a fun back and forth here, is to use the tip and donation link at the bottom of the screen, GSMCPodcast.net. It's a huge help not only to us here at the network, but to you all. You get to kind of have a fun, interactive experience here, and I think that's always good for the both of us. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net if you have any questions. I can also see the chat on the side, so if you want to just leave questions there, I'm more than happy to answer those as well. But let's jump right in and let's talk about Les Miles, because this is something that kind of took the college football world by storm over the last couple of days. Les Miles has filed a lawsuit against LSU, claiming that the school's decision to vacate the 37 wins from 2012 to 2015 eliminated his consideration from the College Football Hall of Fame. So he wants a remedy to that. That is what the case said, and definitely something that is going to be really interesting to watch. He is currently under the 60% win total that you need to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. I believe he's at something like .596 or something like that. So very, very close. But yes, those 37 wins are technically what is keeping him from being in that in the College Football Hall of Fame, hypothetically, or at least being considered for it. Frankly, a lot of my opinions on this are pretty short and sweet, I'll be totally honest with you. But first, let's get into what the actual violations were, because it's not as crazy as it was back then, that's for sure. According to the NCAA's release, the Level 1 violations date back to 2012, when a representative of LSU's athletic interests paid a father of a prospective athlete a total of $180,000 and $150, over a 5-year span as part of an embezzlement scheme. The athlete enrolled in LSU and competed from 2012 to 2016, which would be the reason for the vacated wins during that time. And the representative has been disassociated from the program for 10 years. So a lot going on here, right? I think a lot of us remember when these allegations came out, when all of this stuff came out, and when Les Miles' tenure at LSU was just tainted just a little bit. And frankly, I think my opinions are pretty cut and dry on this. Dennis Dodd wrote an interesting article on CBS about this, and he told all of the Division I schools he's worked for, Oklahoma State, LSU, Kansas, none of them have nominated him. And frankly, I think it's for a reason. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame head coach. I think he could get those 37 wins back and be above a 60% win percentage, and he still wouldn't be a Hall of Fame coach. It's no disrespect to him. He accomplished something in 2007 that a lot of coaches have been trying to accomplish for a long time, and a lot come up short. And I'm not necessarily trying to diminish that championship by any means, but the dude's not one of the best coaches of all time. He just isn't in my mind. I think he isn't in a lot of people's minds. If the rule was if you win a national title, you're in the Hall of Fame, there's a lot of guys that would get in that I would not necessarily love to get in, if I'm being totally honest. So it's no disrespect to Les Miles. What he did at LSU was really impressive, but what he did after that 2007 title, in my opinion, kind of held LSU back from being what they could have been. I think that offense was very, very benign, and it wasn't very scary to a lot of people, and it just made it the years that could have been, right there with Bama and fighting over the SEC and being right in the thick of things ended up being LSU kind of fading back as Alabama took all of the spotlight. So he could have the 37 wins back. In fact, I think he should have the 37 wins back. With all of the stuff that is happening today, all of the rules in the past kind of don't apply to current day college football. So I'm all fine with him having his wins back, but it just doesn't change the way that I think about him as a college football Hall of Famer. I don't think that he deserves to be in there. I think his last job at Kansas went over about as poorly as you could possibly do. He came into that job above the 60% win marker and then proceeded to go 3-18 over 2 years. So, I like the coach. I think he, accomplished something at LSU that was really, really impressive. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame coach. And that's just kind of the end of that conversation for me, if I'm being totally honest, because at the end of the day, he should get his wins back. It doesn't change the way I think about him. Maybe he'll get in. Maybe it's the way it'll change the way that others think about him. But for me, he's not a Hall of Fame coach with or without those 37 wins. But this gave me a good opportunity that I really wanted over the last little bit to jump back into the Hall of Fame talk, because there have been a couple of things that have happened over the last couple of weeks since I've talked about it the first time and said it's really a glorified museum at this point. If you're not including guys like Mike Leach, like Pete Carroll, like Peter Warwick, if you're not including those type of guys, it's not a college football Hall of Fame. It's a really, really cool museum, and that's incredible, and it's a very fun place to go. I've gone a number of times, but it's not a Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to get back into this because I've been trying to take a little bit of time to kind of calm down about this issue, frankly, to kind of mince my words a little bit, but it's been hard to do that because this is just a ridiculous system. I'll be totally honest. The moniker of winning 60% of your games is absolutely ridiculous. Les Miles should be eligible right now. Now, should he get in? I don't think so, but that's a different conversation. He should be eligible right now. It's what's keeping Howard Schnellenberger, who absolutely should be in, and Mike Leach, who is not even a question to me, should be in. Also, coaches have to coach for at least a decade. That's insane. People can come in and out of this sport pretty quickly, but have a remarkable effect like Pete Carroll did with USC. He's one of the best coaches that probably has ever coached in college football, and not having him in that Hall of Fame is just beyond ridiculous because he coached 9 years instead of 10. So that's ridiculous. And then having a player be a first-team All-American is just ridiculous. There's tons of really good football players in college football. There are tons of ones that will never sniff a first-team All-American because they play at Toledo or they play at Buffalo, but they mean a ton to those programs and they do incredible things at those programs. Those guys deserve a shot. That's just plain and simple. I don't think that should even be up for debate, if I'm being totally honest with you. That's kept out guys like Trevor Lawrence, Nick Chubb, Stetson Bennett, Colt Brennan, who absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame because he brought Hawaii on, national television. He brought Hawaii in the front of so many people that absolutely wouldn't even thought about staying up to watch a Hawaii game. They did it because that guy was on the field. So it's not even a question to me. A lot of these players, everyone that I just named, should be in the College Football Hall of Fame because all of them totally altered the way that college football is played, and also were just the best players in the country at the time that they played. They might have just been one notch below another quarterback or another running back or whatever. So it's one of those that I absolutely hate the parameters. You can't put parameters on a sport that is so variable, that is so different than every other sport. If you put all those parameters on an NFL Hall of Fame or an MLB Hall of Fame or an NBA Hall of Fame, that's all well and good to me. I have very little problem with that because everyone plays each other. Everyone is around the same skill level. There's not this big gap in ability and talent level. There is at college football, and you just have to account for that when you're going into the Hall of Fame. So But the one that I really want to zero in on here, I've made my piece about Mike Leach. He should be in. This isn't even a question. If team need to vacate wins and give them to Texas Tech to make it happen, I don't care how it happens. Get that guy in the Hall of Fame. I want to talk about Stetson Bennett because one of my favorite college football guys out there, Josh Pate, put out a poll a week and a half ago. I'm sure some of you might have seen it, basically just asking the question, should Stetson Bennett be in the Hall of Fame? He's not eligible at this point. He is not someone that can get into the Hall of Fame at this point, but leave those rules by the side. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? And 47% of the people that voted were just wrong because they said no. He is absolutely a Hall of Famer. And frankly, it's not even a question to me. I genuinely don't see the other side of it. Stetson Bennett is college football. He is the best story I have ever seen in college football. And on top of that, he was a really good football player. People will tell you that Georgia carried him. People will tell you that he had all the talent in the world around him. And yeah, he did. But so did a lot of quarterbacks before him at Georgia. And so do a lot of quarterbacks across the country. Not all of them win back-to-back titles. He went 29-3 as a starter, was a Heisman finalist, two-time national champion, brought a program that had really been sitting in that 10-2, 9-3 area that is kind of purgatory for some college football programs and brought them to the absolute top. And it's that guy. It was not anyone else because Jacob Eason tried to do it. Jake Fromm tried to do it and got pretty close but didn't finish the job. And then Stetson Bennett came in, and it was some mix of his swagger. It was some mix of his will to just not say no. It was a mix of a million different things. But that is the most important guy in Georgia football history. 90% of Georgia fan base would tell you that. The other 10% would tell you Herschel Walker. So it's a good argument between the two. The two. But Stetson Bennett did something that has never been done at Georgia, has only been done a handful of times in college football. And one of the arguments I saw, obviously, was he's surrounded by talent. I don't care. I'll be totally honest with you. I just don't care. The dude has to make the right decisions. The dude has to put the ball where it needs to be when it needs to be there, and he did it a ton. So Stetson Bennett is absolutely a Hall of Famer. And another argument was, well, if Stetson Bennett gets in, then A.J. McCarron's got to be in, right? Yeah, absolutely he should be in. He started one of the best dynasties we've ever seen in the sport. So yeah, A.J. McCarron should be in. It shouldn't matter how many guys you have around you. It shouldn't matter how incredible your team is. It should matter what you do on the field, and what Stetson Bennett did on the field was just out of this world incredible. So to sum this up, the Hall of Fame at this very moment is a little ridiculous. There's too many rules around what you need to do to get in, and who gets in based off, first team All-Americans, and if you've coached an X amount of time, if you've won a certain amount of games. All of that is ridiculous in a sport that is as weird, as variable, and as different as college football is. So guys like Mike Leach, guys like Pete Carroll, Colt Brennan, Julio Jones, Howard Schnellenberger, Nick Chubb, Trevor Lawrence, Stetson Bennett, all of those dudes are Hall of Famers. I have no question about that, but all of those dudes are not even eligible to be talked about to get in. That's insane. College football is a very weird sport that has a lot of nooks and crannies that we can't contextualize by on-the-field results. So I think it's a little ridiculous. I love the Hall of Fame. I think it's a really fun place to go. It's a very, very fun experience and the number of really cool things to see in there. But as of right now, it's a museum to college football and not a Hall of Fame. So if they change some of the rules, if they get some of the people in there that should be in there and maybe should have been for quite some time, as in Howard Schnellenberger and Pete Carroll, then I'm all on board. But a lot of stuff has got to happen. Do away with the rules and just let the guys in. This sport is very special for guys like that. So just let the guys in and let everyone really enjoy what should be what the Hall of Fame is about. But we'll take our first break. I actually went on such a rant there that I forgot to use the pictures that I had, but that's beside the point. We're going to get into a study after this that suggests that we change the workouts in the offseason for the O-linemen. Definitely a lot of hard workouts in the blazing heat that has caused a lot of troubles over the last couple of years. So I want to break down that and why I think it's a absolutely fantastic idea to alter some of these workouts. So we'll break that down right after this, so stick with us.